In the gilded cages of extraordinary wealth, tragedies often unfold with a peculiar intensity that makes them seem almost mythical. Few stories embody this paradox more completely than that of Christina Onassis, the woman who inherited everything and lost what mattered most. Behind the glittering facade of yachts, private islands, and limitless bank accounts lurked a haunted soul whose brief life was marked by a succession of devastating losses, frustrated ambitions, and a desperate search for connection in a world where her astronomical wealth served more as a barrier than a bridge. Christina Onassis came into the world on December 11, 1950, in New York City, the only daughter of the Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis and Athena Livanos. From her first breath, Christina was enveloped in privilege so vast it bordered on the absurd. Her baptismal water was drawn from the River Jordan. Her childhood toys included miniature versions of her father's prized possessions, a toy yacht modeled after his legendary Christina O, and dolls dressed in couture. While other children played with plastic teacups, Christina sipped from silver and crystal. Her father, Aristotle, known as Ari to intimates, had risen from modest beginnings in Smyrna, now Izmir, Turkey, to become one of the wealthiest men in the world, building a shipping empire that was both the envy and scandal of international business. Self-made and ruthlessly ambitious, he instilled in his daughter a sense that the Onassis name carried with it not just privilege, but obligation, an unspoken demand to continue the dynasty he had wrought through sheer force of will. Christina's mother, Athena, herself the daughter of another shipping tycoon, Stavros Livanos, brought old-world refinement and Greek heritage to the family. But the marriage was turbulent, marked by Aristotle's notorious infidelities, affairs conducted with such brazen disregard for discretion that they regularly made international headlines. The family divided their time between residences in France, Greece, Monte Carlo, and New York, creating a rootless existence that would characterize Christina's entire life. Home was not a place, but a succession of palatial properties, each staffed with servants who addressed the young heiress with practiced deference. Christina once remarked, "I was born, and I started to go around the world immediately." Education came in the form of private tutors, exclusive Swiss boarding schools, and the harsh lessons of watching her parents' marriage disintegrate under the media's relentless scrutiny. By the time Christina was 9 years old, her parents' divorce was finalized after Athena discovered Aristotle's affair with opera star Maria Callas, a scandal that rocked international society and taught Christina her first bitter lesson about love's fragility. If wealth defined the setting of Christina's life, loss became its central theme. The dissolution of her parents' marriage was merely the opening act in what would become a tragic procession of deaths, each one stripping away another layer of whatever security she had managed to construct. In 1973, when Christina was just 22, her brother Alexander died in a plane crash at Athens airport. Alexander had been the apple of their father's eye, the presumed heir to the Onassis empire, and Christina's closest confidant. His death shattered the family. Aristotle, devastated by the loss of his only son, seemed to age overnight. Athena, though divorced from Aristotle, was equally devastated. For Christina, Alexander's death marked not just the loss of her brother, but the moment when the weight of the Onassis legacy fell squarely on her shoulders. Suddenly, she was the sole heir to an empire she had never been fully prepared to lead. After Alexander died, she once confided to a friend, "I knew I would have to become the son my father lost." Less than a year later, in May 1974, Christina's mother, Athena, died, reportedly of an overdose of barbiturates. Though officially ruled accidental, whispers of suicide lingered. Christina was now orphaned of maternal influence at the age of 23, adrift in a world where her father's attention had pivoted sharply toward his new wife, none other than Jacqueline Kennedy, widow of the assassinated American president. The marriage between Aristotle Onassis and Jacqueline Kennedy in 1968 had been a source of deep distress for Christina, who viewed it as both a betrayal of her mother and evidence of her father's susceptibility to social climbing opportunists. The Greek press had dubbed Jackie the widow thief, and Christina privately used far less printable terms. The relationship between stepmother and stepdaughter remained glacial, characterized by mutual suspicion and barely concealed hostility. But Christina had little time to nurse her grievances. In March 1975, Aristotle Onassis, the towering figure who had dominated her life, died from complications of myasthenia gravis. At 24, Christina found herself orphaned completely and the sole inheritor of a $500 million empire, equivalent to billions in today's currency. They say money can't buy happiness, Christina later reflected. But poverty can't buy anything. The question is, what pain would you rather have? Christina's inheritance placed her among the richest women in the world overnight. The Onassis shipping fleet numbered over 70 vessels. There were properties scattered across the globe, including the private island of Scorpios in the Ionian Sea, apartments in Paris and New York, and Olympic Tower, a 51-story skyscraper in Manhattan. There were art collections, jewelry vaults, and bank accounts fat with petrodollars. Yet Christina found herself woefully unprepared for the responsibility thrust upon her. Though she had studied business at university level and had worked alongside her father in nominal positions, the complex web of international finance, shipping regulations, and corporate governance that constituted the Onassis empire was daunting even to seasoned executives. Christina did not shrink from the challenge. With a determination that surprised many who had dismissed her as merely a pampered heiress, she assumed control of Onassis Holdings and began making her mark. She fired dozens of executives she suspected of disloyalty or incompetence, including many who had served her father for decades. She consolidated operations, sold underperforming assets, and renegotiated contracts with a shrewdness that earned grudging respect from the business world. "I was raised to be strong," she said in a rare interview. "My father always told me, 'Christina, you must learn to be hard to survive in this world.' Perhaps I learned that lesson too well." But if Christina demonstrated unexpected business acumen, her personal life remained in perpetual turmoil. She had developed a fraught relationship with food in her teens, cycling between periods of compulsive eating and strict dieting. Her weight fluctuated dramatically, and the international press covered each pound gained or lost with cruel attention to detail. Photographers pursued her relentlessly, capturing unflattering moments that would be splashed across magazines worldwide. "I would give up all my millions to be a happy woman," she once confessed to a friend. "I have everything money can buy, but I wake up every day knowing that I own nothing that truly matters." Christina's desperate search for stability and genuine connection manifested most visibly in her series of marriages, 4 in total, each one beginning with hope and ending in bitter disappointment. Her first husband was Joseph Bolker, a Los Angeles real estate developer nearly twice her age. They married in 1971, when Christina was barely 20, against her father's strenuous objections. The marriage lasted just 9 months before ending in divorce, with Christina later describing it as an act of rebellion rather than love. In 1975, shortly after her father's death, Christina married Alexander Andreatis, a Greek shipping heir whose family had long been rivals of the Onassis empire. The union was seen by many as a strategic consolidation of Greek shipping interests, though Christina insisted there was genuine affection. That marriage, too, collapsed within a year. Her third husband was Sergei Kauzov, a Russian shipping agent whom she had met through business dealings. Their 1978 marriage raised eyebrows not just for the cultural differences, but because it occurred during the Cold War, when relationships with Soviet citizens carried political implications. This marriage lasted slightly longer than her previous ones, but still ended in divorce by 1980. Christina's final marriage in 1984 was to Thierry Rousel, a French pharmaceutical heir with whom she had her only child, Athena. This union seemed at first to offer Christina the family stability she had long craved, but the relationship was turbulent from the start, marked by Rousel's infidelities, including a long-term relationship with a Swedish model with whom he had 2 children during his marriage to Christina. They divorced in 1987. Each failed marriage seemed to push Christina further into isolation. "Love and money don't mix," she once remarked bitterly. "When you have money, you never know if someone loves you for yourself." The birth of Athena Onassis Rousel on January 29, 1985, represented for Christina the possibility of breaking the cycle of loss that had defined her life. Here, at last, was someone who might love her unconditionally, a child untainted by interest in her fortune, a new beginning for the tragedy-plagued Onassis line. Christina threw herself into motherhood with characteristic intensity. She hired the best nannies and childcare experts, but unlike many women of her wealth and position, she insisted on being directly involved in Athena's daily care. Photographs from this period show a Christina rarely captured by the media, smiling genuinely, holding her daughter with visible tenderness, momentarily unburdened by the weight of her history. "When Athena was born," said a close friend, "it was the first time I ever saw Christina truly happy. She would say, 'Now, I have something real to live for.'" But the joy of motherhood was complicated by her deteriorating relationship with Rousel and her ongoing health struggles. The diabetes that had plagued her for years worsened. Her weight continued to fluctuate dramatically, and she increasingly turned to prescription medications to manage her physical and emotional pain. On November 19, 1988, in the Buenos Aires mansion of her friend Marina Dodero, Christina Onassis was found dead in the bathtub. She was just 37 years old. The official cause of death was pulmonary edema, a heart attack caused by acute myocardial infarction. Though rumors of suicide or drug overdose circulated, toxicology reports indicated only the presence of her prescribed medications. Christina left behind a 3-year-old daughter and a fortune estimated at $1 billion. Athena would become the center of legal battles between the executors of Christina's estate and Thierry Rousel, who fought for and eventually won custody of his daughter. The fortune that had defined and often burdened Christina's existence passed to Athena, making the infant one of the richest children in the world, and perpetuating the cycle of privilege and isolation that had shaped her mother's brief, tumultuous life. Christina Onassis's life reads like a modern Greek tragedy, a cautionary tale about wealth's inability to insulate against life's fundamental sorrows. She had been born with every material advantage, yet died younger than her father's lowest-paid deckhand, having never found the happiness that seemed perpetually just beyond her reach. "You know what's the worst thing about being rich?" she once asked a friend. "It's having more money than you could ever spend, and nothing worth buying." In the years since her death, Christina has become a symbol of wealth's limitations. A woman who could purchase islands but not peace of mind, who could command a fleet of ships but not chart a course to personal fulfillment. Her story resonates because it contradicts our collective fantasy that unlimited resources would solve our deepest problems. Perhaps the most telling summary of Christina's life comes from a former employee who had witnessed her struggles firsthand. "She was the richest poor little girl I ever knew." Christina Onassis's grave lies on the private island of Scorpios, alongside those of her father and brother. The island itself, once the crown jewel of the Onassis Empire, was sold by Athena in 2013 to Russian billionaire Dmitry Rybolovlev for a reported $153 million, severing the family's last physical connection to Greece. The Onassis shipping fleet has been mostly sold off or restructured. The family's vast fortune now powers the Onassis Foundation, which supports education, culture, and health initiatives, perhaps the only aspect of Christina's inheritance that has managed to transcend the patterns of loss and alienation that defined her life. In the end, Christina Onassis's tragedy was not that she lost everything. It was that the things she lost were irreplaceable, while the things she kept became burdens too heavy to bear. Her billions could buy anything except what she most desperately wanted: a simple life, free from the crushing weight of the Onassis name and the gilded loneliness it commanded. "Sometimes," she once said in a moment of rare candor, "I think my life would have been happier if my father had been a simple fisherman instead of the richest man in the world." In that single statement lies the essence of Christina Onassis's tragedy: a life of material excess and emotional poverty, of unlimited means and severely limited joy. Her story endures not because of the billions she controlled, but because of the universal truth it illuminates: that happiness remains democracy's most precious commodity, distributed with sublime indifference to the balance in one's bank account.